I'm Ben Meiselas from the MeidasTouch Network, and this is a breaking news alert. Donald Trump just made a horrific and deeply disturbing threat directed at the judge, Arthur Engoran, who is overseeing the lawsuit brought by the New York Attorney General's office seeking at least $250 million for Donald Trump and the Trump Organization and his adult children's fraudulent valuations of their properties made to banks and to insurers and to government entities to try to gain improper benefits. Let me read for you this statement that Trump made. He says, "The only person who may be worse than weak on violent crime, AG Letitia Peekaboo James, is the judge we have on her ridiculous and highly partisan case against me and my family. His name is Arthur Engoran, and he is a vicious, biased, and mean rubber stamp for the communist takeover of the great, prosperous American company that I have built over a long period of years. He was appointed by my worst enemies. Case was to go to a new judge, but he demands to keep it. I have no jury or civil rights." There's no other way to look at that statement other than a threat to the judge overseeing his case. And this is also a call to action to his followers, and Trump knows exactly what he's doing in naming the judge, how he named the judge in this statement, to do horrible things to Judge Arthur Engoran. There's no other way around it. Now let's just break down this statement and let's talk about the timing of the statement. First, the timing of the statement. There is a critical hearing taking place on Monday, October 31st, where the New York Attorney General, Letitia James, filed a motion for a preliminary injunction, which, if granted, would appoint an independent monitor by the court to work inside the Trump Organization to review all of Donald Trump's financial filings and financial representations made to third parties. And it would also have the independent monitor ensure that Donald Trump is not fraudulently conveying his assets to third parties to try to shield himself and the Trump Organization from a huge monetary judgment if he loses this lawsuit that was brought by the New York Attorney General's office, or I should say, when he loses this lawsuit brought by the New York Attorney General's office. And for Donald Trump, having an independent monitor oversee his financial dealings is probably one of his deepest fears. And so he is writing this statement at this time to try to intimidate and threaten Judge Engoran to withdraw before this October 31st hearing. Now, everything that Donald Trump says in this statement is completely false. When he says, let's go in reverse order with the statement. Trump says, case was to go to a new judge, but he demands to keep it. That statement is completely false. Judge Engoran was originally assigned to the special proceeding, which is the New York Attorney General's investigation into business misconduct in the state of New York. And so Judge Engoran presided over that case. So when a lawsuit was brought by the New York Attorney General's office, what happens in these litigations is a notice of related cases filed. And the case filed by the New York Attorney General, the lawsuit, is related to the special proceeding where the investigation took place. And that is what occurred here. And the actual decision that was made about whether or not Judge Engoran would remain on the case was actually made by a supervising judge to Judge Engoran, a judge who oversees administrative decisions about where cases are assigned. And Donald Trump tried to remove this case from Judge Engoran because Donald Trump did not like the rulings that Judge Engoran was making in the special proceeding. And let's talk about that special proceeding. That was the investigation where Letitia James called Donald Trump to testify. And she asked Donald Trump questions like, what's the valuation of Mar-a-Lago? What's the valuation of Trump Tower? What's the valuation of Bedminster? What's the valuation of Trump Soho? What did you tell this lender the valuation was? What did you tell that lender that valuation was? What did you tell this insurer the valuation was? What did you tell these shareholders the valuation was? What did you state the valuation was on your tax filings? Very basic questions. And what did Trump do for each and every one of those questions? You know the answer. I plead the fifth. I plead the fifth. I plead the fifth. He invoked his right against self-incrimination over 400 times when he was given the opportunity to explain the valuations of his properties. So then he says in his statement, I have no jury or civil rights. Well, you had the opportunity to answer questions there, and you will have a jury trial. The way cases work is that they're assigned to a judge. The judge handles pretrial proceedings, and then a case goes in front of a jury. And so you're at the stage in the case where it is in front of the judge, and the judge is hearing motions, and the judge is overseeing discovery, and the judge is overseeing all things that judges across the country do every day for pre-trial work. You look at the statement where he uses these racist dog whistles and refers to AG Letitia James. I don't even want to repeat it again. And then what he calls this judge, a vicious, biased, and mean rubber stamp for the communist takeover of the great and prosperous American company that I have built over a long period of years. Well, it's not a prosperous company. In fact, all of the companies that you've started and worked with have declared bankruptcy numerous times, and here you're being accused with this company of engaging in fraudulent conduct. And you were asked very basic questions at a deposition, which litigants across the country are asked every day. And rather than answer those questions, you invoked your Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination, which in an action like this, and we've talked about it before on the MeidasTouch podcast and on the MeidasTouch network and on the Legal AF podcast, which I host as well, that constitutes an adverse inference in this case, meaning that the court and jury can be instructed, look, Donald Trump invoked his Fifth Amendment rights. He refused to answer. This is a civil context. And so in a civil context, you can infer that the invocation of the Fifth was done to cover for the bad information that he was trying to hide. You can infer that there is an adverse finding that should be made against Trump for invoking the Fifth Amendment. One of the reasons, too, that Trump is writing this statement now before this October 31st hearing is that part of the administrative order where Donald Trump tried to get Judge Engoron removed and the administrative judge who oversees appointments says, no, look, this is a related case. There was a special proceeding that took place. This is a filing by the New York Attorney General's, which is relating to the special proceeding. Judge Engoron has jurisdiction over this case, unless Judge Engoron decides that he doesn't want to hear this case. And I'll read you that part of the order, and no doubt Trump's lawyers told him about that part of the order, because what Trump is trying to do is try to intimidate this judge to withdraw. So let me read you this part of the order right here. This is the administrative judge who made this decision. Adam Silvera, Judge Adam Silvera, administrative judge, Supreme Court, New York County. Consistent with court procedure, the general clerk's office appropriately assigned this action to Judge Engoron on the grounds that plaintiff identified it, the New York Attorney General identified it as related to the special proceeding. In the event Judge Engoron deems this action unrelated to the special proceeding pursuant to Section 202.70E of the Rules of Commercial Division of the Supreme Court, Judge Engoron may make a request to transfer this action to the Commercial Division. Contrary to counsel's assertion, the special proceeding is still pending before Judge Engoron and has not been marked disposed. And so that is what Trump's lawyers are likely telling him about, that here it's up to Judge Engoron. He may request to transfer this action to the Commercial Division. And if this action is transferred to the Commercial Division, the Commercial Division is great in New York, but they take a very, very, very long time. And I'm not talking about a year. I'm talking about many years. In some cases, over 5 years, between 5 and 10 years, I've seen cases in New York last. And so Trump is trying to intimidate Judge Engoron to withdraw before this October 31st hearing, where a preliminary injunction is being sought by the New York Attorney General's office to appoint an independent monitor, which would be devastating to Trump and the Trump organization, who wants to engage in their fraudulent schemes unfettered, without people checking out their books. And this process would have someone check out their books. So they're trying to get Engoron to say, look, I'm just going to transfer this to the commercial division. I don't want this headache. And frankly, that conduct right there, that statement, I think that the New York Attorney General's office, I think the Manhattan DA's office should look into that as a criminal threat. I don't know how else to read that post that I just read to you as anything other than an attempt to obstruct and to threaten the life of Judge Engoron, who's just doing his job. Look, it wasn't Judge Engoron who told Trump to plead the fifth 400 times. Trump made that decision on his own. In the special proceeding, Judge Engoron found Trump in contempt for not producing records. Trump then had to turn over the records and pay the fine. It wasn't Judge Engoron's fault that Donald Trump refused to produce the records that were requested by the New York Attorney General's office, and then Donald Trump paid the fine. He could have appealed it up, he could have argued, but he paid the fine when he was found in contempt in these special proceedings. This is a real dastardly tactic that's used by Trump. And frankly, I think our law enforcement, I think prosecutorial agencies cannot just let him get away with making statements like that threaten courts. Look, he's doing the very same thing right now within the Central District of California, where he is threatening Judge David Carter, in a case brought by Trump's own lawyer, John Eastman, asserting attorney-client privilege, such that the January 6th committee should not get Eastman's communications relating to the January 6th insurrection. Judge Carter, the federal judge there, found that the crime fraud exception applied, that Trump engaged in a criminal conduct with John Eastman, and that these emails reflect a crime that's committed, and turn over these records to the January 6th committee now because of the crime fraud exception to attorney-client privilege. Trump attacks Judge Carter. He puts judge in quotes and calls him a political hack and, all of these things. And I think even the judges, I've said, I think Judge Carter should haul Trump into court. I think that Judge Engoron should have Trump show up in court and talk about those statements. We'll see. Trump, I'm sure, will plead the fifth over and over again, but just despicable statements that are being made. Now, what do I think is going to happen? Judge Engoron is not going to withdraw from the case. There's going to be the hearing on October 31st. And I think that there was going to be a finding in favor of the New York Attorney General's office that Trump is engaged in ongoing criminal conduct, that an independent monitor needs to be appointed and placed within the Trump organization. And I think we're going to see more unhinged statements like that. But I want everybody to know, because this is kind of flying under the radar, this hearing, where people are talking about a lot of things in Trump world. But on October 31st, this is a major hearing. And if an independent monitor is appointed within the Trump organization, that is just going to be devastating for Donald Trump. So we'll see what happens. Hit the subscribe button right now. We're on our way to 1 million subscribers, thanks to your support. In addition, check us out at patreon.com/MeidasTouch, patreon.com/MeidasTouch. A number of exclusive membership packages there where you could join. It will help grow this independent media platform. Check it out at patreon.com/MeidasTouch. Until next time, I'm Ben Meiselas.
At MeidasTouch, we are unapologetically pro-democracy, and we demand justice and accountability. That's why we're spreading our message to Convict 45. That's right, gear up right now with your Convict 45 tees and pins at store.MeidasTouch.com. That's store.MeidasTouch.com.